experiences and innovative solutions. But just to put this in a context, the GIAHS sites, and I'm sure you've been hearing this probably throughout the day of this event, they are really unique in what they offer in terms of their value, because they're rich not just in agrobiodiversity, but also in the cultural aspect and the traditional knowledge and cultures that goes around these sites, and also the sustainable practices and the conservation of ecosystems. So they really convey for me this relationship between the environment and people, is the harmony, is the respect between the environments and people, and is a good demonstration of respecting the environment, respecting and appreciating the value that we get out of healthy ecosystems and respect of the tradition and the culture. And their value also in achieving the sustainability of rural development and providing that value of the landscape that people benefit from. So welcome again to this session, which will be looking at sharing experiences. So we have a number of speakers who will share with us their perspectives and their thoughts. So what we will have is two parts, if you like. The first one will have about 5 speakers, and I will introduce them one after the other as they take the floor. And then after that, we'll have a break, a short break, and then we will come back and have another 5 speakers. Then we'll have another short break, and then we will have questions and answers for about 20-25 minutes before we conclude around 4:30. So before I introduce the first speaker, let me just remind everyone, and you probably know, for those of you who have been following this from the start, we have simultaneous interpretation in all the 6 FAO official languages. So you can choose the language you would like. At the bottom of the screen there, as usual, we find the world symbol there that says interpretation, and just select the language you want. For the 5 speakers that I will introduce, if you could speak for about 5-6 minutes each, that would be really great. So that if anyone would like to add anything from the audience, I would like to give that opportunity to keep this interactive. So maybe 1 or 2 interventions before we break for 5 minutes, that would be good. And for the speakers, please just watch my body language. If you see me approaching the screen or saying okay, that's a sign for you to wrap up, so that we can move on. And I'd like to be fair to everyone. Everyone speaking, you'll have plenty of time. 5 or 6 minutes is amazing how much you can say in that. Is a lot. And then I'd like people to perhaps give 1 or 2 remarks so that we can hear from the people joining us. At the moment, we have 104 participants, which is a nice audience. So please bear that in mind. So let me now, as I said, hear from the experiences from colleagues on how they want to share with us their experiences and innovative solutions. So it's my pleasure to invite first Firdousi Islam, who's the director at the Training and Communication Wing of the Bangladesh Agricultural Research Institute, BARI, who will give opening remarks for this technical session. Over to you, Firdousi.
Thank you very much. Good. Just a minute. Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to all. And just give me time. Screen to share. Sound yes. Hello, can you hearing me? Hello, everybody.
Yes, we can hear you.
Should I start?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity as a first presenter. Good afternoon, everybody. The theme of my topics, adaptation to extreme weather condition, the example of the floating garden. I myself, Dr. Firdousi Islam, Director, Training and Communication Wing, Bangladesh Agriculture Research Institute, Bangladesh. The policy of government on climate resilience and agriculture development, Bangladesh government developed many of policy. Bangladesh Delta Plan 2021 is one of the important policy, and the prospective plan of Bangladesh 8-5 years plan, many plans. Now, floating agriculture is a policy for climate smart agriculture, to protect the climate agriculture smart program. Locally, actually, local farmers have been practicing this method from 250 years ago. And this floating agriculture practice mainly originated from the flood-prone part of the Bangladesh, that the southern part of the Bangladesh, and flooded or waterlogged areas are used for growing vegetables and spices crop, as well as seedling, and they're doing business. And finally, this program has considered as climate smart agriculture technology. And currently in Bangladesh, area under floating garden practice is about 1,255 hectares, but in 2014 it was only 273 hectares. So this is a great achievement in Bangladesh condition. Now the climate scenario of Bangladesh, actually, according to Global Climate Risk Index 2019, Bangladesh is the 7th most affected country in the world due to extreme weather event and climate change impact on salinity intrusion, sea level rise, flood, drought, cyclone. This is the scenario of flash flood affected livelihood people in different parts of Bangladesh. First one is flash flood affected area. Second one is submerged low-lying area of Bangladesh. And these are the same scenario. Actually, nationally important agriculture practices Bangladesh. This is the scenario of national agriculture important practice. Floating garden is one of the important practice, and this is the heritage. People started this method, this technology from to very beginning, I mentioned earlier. And in this practice, people used to do seedling raising. Yeah. Then surgeon method, it's a tidal flooded areas technology, and then flooded area technology, dye cropping method, that is caper vegetable growing technology in the bank of the river. and pyramid agriculture, creeper vegetable technology for the low-lying area. This is the national agriculture important program. And vegetable cultivation through raised bed technique. This is one of the important national agriculture program. Rooftop gardening is another program, and vegetable cultivation on fish boundary, and zoom cultivation in hilly area. This all are the national important agriculture practice in Bangladesh. Our traditional floating agriculture, this is the traditional agriculture, floating agriculture, seedling, cucurbit, legume, spices, papaya, different type of crop grown in this method. First one is the vegetable and spices seedling production on floating bed. Second one is vegetable and spices growing on floating bed, and ready floating bed are ready for selling, and seedling are selling in floating area and floating food shop. Primary seedling sold at seedling sold at their local floating market, and this seedling and transported in the transported for marketing in different places of Bangladesh. Such farmers can earn average almost $140 per bed, and where the bed size is was some 50 to 50 meter long in a monsoon. So selling their seedling at local floating market. This is the scenario of their seedling raising and seedling selling purpose. So this floating garden impact on agriculture, economic and ecological. In agriculture aspect, people are getting additional space for vegetable cultivation and seedling raising, early winter seedling preparation, fulfill their local demand of his seedling, and decomposed floating bed can be used as compost that reduce their use of chemical fertilizer for subsequent next crop production. In case of socio benefit, enhance the enhancement of nutritional security, relatively organic and safe food production is possible, encourage their household income, and opportunity create for employment for local people, both men and women. And ecologically, climate smart technology for adaptation to climate change, enhance the biodiversity of plants, technology is eco-friendly, so save the environment, and ecotourism can create at the GIAHS side. In these views, FAO, last 2015, FAO declared floating garden agriculture practice of Bangladesh as globally important agriculture heritage. FAO declared this, and this is the certificate. So after that, Bangladesh government initiative for GIAHS conservation, improvement and dissemination. And then BARI started. BARI, that means Bangladesh Agriculture Research Institute, started research on floating agriculture system, and they designed and implemented such type of research program, that is improvement of traditional floating bed production and quality, seedling of vegetable and spices, crop diversification of floating bed, improvement of agronomic practice for floating bed, development of year-round vegetable production on floating bed, integrated vegetable and fish culture on floating bed, insect and disease management practice, diversified use of compost, water hyacinth, and determination, finally, determination of soil and water quality due to floating agriculture garden practice. And this is the seedling preparation and preparing and selling scenario. And another program, they did research and developed another technology, that is floating bed cum trellis technology for non-tidal model. This model is developed for creeper vegetable cultivation. Creeper vegetable can plant it on the floating bed, but their growth and development take place on the wide trellis, but wide of the trellis 3 to 6 meter maybe. Short duration, different type of vegetables like red amaranth, spinach, radish, coriander leaf can be grown in the floating bed with creeper vegetable. However, this improved technology needed 50 to 60% less amount of water hyacinth compared to the traditional floating garden system. This is the finding of the research. And done some adaptive trial of summer tomato on floating bed. Actually, tomato in Bangladesh is a winter crop, but in floating bed, people can grow easily in summer season, though they have the summer variety. It's a good variety. And turmeric cultivation on floating bed, chili cultivation, cabbage, and bean cultivation. And most of the case, use of sex pheromone trap and biopesticide for controlling insect and pests of growing vegetable on floating bed. This is the scenario, and IPM technology, IPM, that's integrated pest management technology, worked against the fruit fly. Diversity use of decomposed water hyacinth for water winter vegetable cultivation. This is the now called mixed vegetable, broccoli, country bean, bitter gourd. Most of the vegetables can grow in bed system. Then based on the technology, Bari developed some publication. This is creeper vegetable cultivation using floating bed cum trellis, summer tomato cultivation on floating bed, off-season watermelon cultivation on floating bed, and chili cultivation on floating bed. Actually, there is a good information on watermelon cultivation on floating bed, especially in off season.
Sorry, Dr. Islam, sorry to interrupt you. Yeah, if you could please conclude in 1 minute, because you spent 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Finally, policy recommendation for GIAHS. Some fruit, strawberry, melon, like this fruit, flower, fodder crop can introduced for sustaining the GIAHS technology, conservation of biodiversity for floating bed component like different type of water hyacinth to protect floating bed material environment should be maintained properly. Access of digital and modern agriculture technology, including marketing system to the GIAHS stakeholder for their awareness and capacity building, commercialization of floating agriculture system through producing and exporting, and encourage private sector for investment of GIAHS site for income generation and livelihood improvement, and sharing of knowledge and experience among the stakeholders regarding GIAHS management through visiting the GIAHS side of the area of the world. And final way forward, floating agriculture based cropping system for different bed categories of different land categories of Bangladesh, development of complete production package for each of the crop, introduction flower, fruit, and fodder crop, their floating agriculture system, seeking alternate material of water hyacinth for making floating bed, improvement of integrated management of floating crops, integrated nutrient management of floating agriculture system, determination of qualitative traits and heavy metal on floating agriculture produced in different areas of Bangladesh. Finally, commercialization of floating agriculture system through producing and exporting of organic production for international market. Thank you very much. This is all about my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Islam. That was very helpful and very colorful as well. So thank you, and thank you for sharing with us the experience for your national important agricultural practices and the fact that these have been practiced by farmers for the last 250 years. So there's a lot of heritage and a lot of traditional knowledge. And the fact that Bangladesh is the 7th most affected country in the world by climate change, particularly through floods. So you can see the impact on these national heritage practices and sites. Thank you very much for sharing this with us. And let me invite now the next speaker, Rosario Valer, who's a member of the National Coordination Team of the GIAHS Biodiversity Project in Peru. Rosario, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and you are most welcome.
Thank you. Is Rosario Valer with us?
Buenos días, ¿cómo están? Les habla Rosario Valer del Perú. Voy a hacer la presentación de la experiencia
A presentation on our experience as part of the GIAHS agricultural program in Peru. Could you please share my screen, or should I do it myself? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello.
Can you try doing it from your side? If not, the secretariat will help you. Can you try now?
I need translation. Apologies.
I think she can share her screen now.
I have managed to share my screen. Just a few moments, please. Good afternoon. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. We can.
Yes, we can see it.
And you can put it in presentation mode.
I am going to be sharing our experience as part of the GIAHS Agrobiodiversity Project, which has been in place in Peru for just over 4 years now. As you can see on the screen, this is a photo of a conservationist in the Cusco area of Peru. I'd like to recall some of the central elements of the GIAHS criteria. We designed the project based on this criteria, and we also implemented it based on this criteria. As you can see, one of the criteria is the contribution of agrobiodiversity to food security and livelihoods. This is a cross-cutting criterion as part of the GIAHS. That is to say, identification of local and traditional knowledge in Quechua and Aymara cultures. We also have the contribution of agrobiodiversity to production and environmental sustainability. And as you'll see, each of these criteria are fulfilled within the various components of the project. We also have culture, value systems, and social organizations, which focus on preservation of the significant varieties that are native to our country. And of course, outstanding landscapes which focus on the management of land and water resources. So what is the aim of the GIAHS Agrobiodiversity Project? Well, as you can see, it's intrinsically linked with conservation of agrobiodiversity and the recovery of vulnerable ecosystems. In the 5 areas of intervention, on the left-hand side, you can see a picture of the map of Peru, part of Peru. We're working in 5 regions: Cusco, which has Machu Picchu in it, which you may know. Then we have Arequipa, a mining area. Puno, which is a high plain, and Arequipa, which is slightly different to the other four regions because it's in the forest area, the coastal area, as opposed to the Andean part of the region. It is one of the most significant coastal areas in our country. In order to implement the project, we have 4 components. The first is intrinsically related to the conservation of agrobiodiversity and the recovery of vulnerable ecosystems. The second is related to the development of markets for agrobiodiversity products, which are seasonal. And the third component is strengthening institutions using frameworks which ensure the continuity of the project and its implementation and resources. And of course, the last component is monitoring and evaluation. So who are the main stakeholders? Well, we work at national level with the Ministry of Agriculture. We also work with the Ministry for the Environment. We also work with the National Research Institute, and we also work with Profonampe, Peruvian Trust Fund for National Parks and Protected Areas, and the FAO, who provides technical assistance. We also have agreements with the Peruvian Association of Consumers and Users, as well as the National Service of Natural Areas Protected by the State, the Association of Andean Ecosystems, ECOAN, which is very well known internationally, and also the National Association of Ecological Producers of Peru. These are the more institutionalized stakeholders. However, we also have different departments at regional level within the 5 regions that I mentioned previously. There is a regional government which is made up of local municipal administration, and there are 3 different levels of these local governments. So we work at local level in order to develop conservation efforts. As we mentioned previously, the first component is intrinsically linked to the preservation of agrobiodiversity and the recovery of vulnerable ecosystems. So let's have a look at what we did as part of component 1. Well, participatory systems have been established, and to do this we've worked with farmer field schools in 60 farmer communities. This has provided implementation of the
ancestrales, están sistematizados, están en publicaciones y también recogen el trabajo de las comunidades.
And they cover the efforts undertaken at local and community level throughout the year. Now, what about production systems and the management and supply of seeds? Well, we use seed banks. These are family seed banks managed by families, but also communal seed banks. As you can see, there is a greater number of family seed banks as compared to communal seed banks. So as you can see, families are behind the management of these seed banks. And 94 different native varieties have been identified. Now, it's important to be able to scale up this project at national level. And so it's important to take into account that for a long time, farmers have offered a wide variety of products. They also provide ecosystem services and contribute to food security, but they're very little known among the general population. And this is why we introduced a recognition system called RESCA, which ensures that these traditional forms of knowledge and traditional practices are recognized through equipment which is provided to these communities. We have been working as part of this mechanism in a surface area of 5,307 hectares.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Could you conclude in 1 minute, please, because you spent 10 minutes already.
Apologies, I didn't hear you. Hello?
Can
I continue?
Could you conclude in 1 minute, please, because you spent 10 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have 4 files for agrobiodiversity areas, which will ensure that these efforts are continued. We're also working on the recovery of vulnerable ecosystems with capacity building and mechanisms which have been provided to producers and covering the sustainable management of 23,939 hectares, 390 hectares of highlands, etc., etc. We've been working with local communities, and we've made sure that they've been involved throughout this process. When it comes to the development of markets, we aim to ensure that producers and consumers are connected through marketing spaces. We have, for example, the AgroBio label, which provides recognition at national level. It's also available through the Kusikwi app, which allows producers to make products available to customers throughout the country, high-quality products.
Okay, I need to ask you to conclude,
another national
please.
program
Can you hear me?
which provides school meals.
Hello?
I'll wrap up in just 1 minute, if you'll allow me.
No more than 1
I'd just like
minute,
to highlight
please,
the
because we're
third
running out of
component.
time. Thank you.
We work with a number of management mechanisms at local and national level. For example, methodological guides. And can you hear us, Maria Rosia? Could you please wrap up your presentation? Thank you very much. Yes, this is the last slide. Apologies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing with us your experience. And thank you for taking us closer to Cusco area in Peru and the Machu Picchu, much known area. Thank you. Very famous heritage area. Let me move on to the next speaker, and please don't take more than 10 minutes because I have to stop you because I want to be fair to all the speakers so we can finish on time. So if you could do your presentation in 8 minutes, that would be appreciated. So as soon as you reach 8 minutes, I'll give you a warning. So thank you. Let me invite now the next speaker, which is Shohri Sultani, Director of Agriculture and Rural Development Research Department at the Agricultural Planning, Economic and Rural Development Research Institute from Iran.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Congratulations on the 20th anniversary of GIAHS. I think GIAHS is a very successful initiative in the world because it takes care of poor farmers, small farmers, and their methods, their approaches, which make them resilient through centuries. And thank you very much for inviting me to present my presentation entitled Sustainable Management of Natural Resources, Historical Water Channels of Canals. As introduction, I want to tell you that the world is experiencing a systemic water crisis as a result of unsustainable management of water resources. My country, Iran, is a dry country with long, hot summers in most part. About 88% of my country is located in arid and semi-arid regions. Canada is one example of our ancestors' effort for sustainable management of water resources. More than 3,000 years ago, Persians started constructing tunnel systems called canals for extracting groundwater for agriculture and domestic usage in arid and semi-arid areas and dry deserts. Nowadays, canal technology is spread among 34 countries in the world. Here is the system of canals, which includes a mother well, a canal channel, vertical access shafts, and canal outlets. In order to save the time, I'm not going to go through the details. Details are here and you can later see them. What is the relationship between canal and agriculture? Although deeply rooted in the history of Iran, canal is not history. Still, 30,000 canals are operating to provide about 8% of the total water supply in the whole country. About 80% of canal water is used in agriculture. About 14% of Iranian agricultural production relies on the water supplied from canals. Also, digging canals involves a considerable amount of work and requires engineering skills originally developed in Iran. Digging a canal used to be a traditional family job in our rural areas. What are the advantages of canal as a technology for sustainable water management? First, canal exploits groundwater as a renewable resource in contrast to the simple well. Also, the rate of flow of water in a canal is always controlled by the level of the underground water table. Thus, a canal cannot cause significant drawdown in an aquifer because its flow varies directly with the surface water supply. Moreover, canal reduces water loss from evaporation since it's underground. In addition, canal delivers large quantities of water to the surface without the need for using a pump and an energy supply, since the canal is fed entirely by gravity. Also, by absorbing runoff from the surface through the vertical shaft, the canal system can reduce the risk of floods. The canal system has the advantage of being relatively immune to human destruction during wars and in natural disasters. Other advantages include canal is relatively insensitive to the level of precipitation. A canal typically delivers a a relatively constant flow with only gradual variation from the wet to dry years. Also, the Ganot's water is filtrated naturally through the earth, so a Ganot can deliver cool, fresh water with low pollution in a hot, dry climate. A Ganot can be used for cooling as well as water supply. And finally, the Ganot system can be used at a fish farm. Fish have been observed in most Ganot. These are just a few advantages of Ganots. Two systems of Ganot is designated as GIAHS in Iran. First was designated in 2014 with the name Ganot Irrigation Agricultural Heritage System in Kashan, and the other was Ganot-based saffron farming systems in Gonawa in 2018. And what was the importance of dynamic conservation of Ganot and why we designated Ganot as GIAHS? Because there are issues and problems in maintenance of Ganot. Over time, these problems can lead to the drying up and destruction of some Ganot. The reasons for the drying up and abandonment of Ganot includes drought and water level drop, community conflicts, lack of skilled people for innovation, cleaning and maintenance of Ganot, migration of Ganot water users, and digging deep and semi-deep wells, which results in permanent depletion of aquifers. Potential impacts of GIAHS designation includes Ganot is a traditional water supply system that needs to be protected and refined. It is hoped that the GIAHS recognition will contribute to the dynamic conservation of the Ganot agricultural heritage system in Iran. GIAHS introduces a holistic, participatory, and multidimensional approach for supporting Ganot to continue their history-long function with regard to food security, livelihood, biodiversity, agricultural management, ecological resilience, and social cohesion. The most important thing which we understood was that the GIAHS designation resulted in raising awareness of policymakers, tourists, local people, local government, and other actors. Here there are some recommendations. Improving their local social system which supports Ganot, monitoring and evaluation of the activities for maintenance of Ganot. The other is strengthening partnership among beneficiaries, also highlighting other functions of Ganot, including tourism, architecture, cultural values, landscape, and others, in addition to natural resource management. And final recommendation is enabling people to incorporate modern scientific approaches in their traditional knowledge for innovation and maintenance of Ganot. If there are any other points, I'm here to listen. Thank you very much. Thank you, moderator. Over to you.
Thank you very much. And that was a perfect timing. You did 8 minutes. Thank you. That's
Thank
really
you.
appreciated. Thank you. And you covered a lot, and that was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a good example for everyone to follow. Really appreciate that. And thank you for sharing with us the water resources management through this site, and particularly the use of the CANAT technology by providing 8% of the water supply in the country, and the awareness raising that you achieved, through the policymakers and the public. That's very impressive. Thank you. Let me now move on to next speaker from Brazil, Ms. Fernanda Monteiro, who's a researcher at the Department of Geography at the University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Over to you, 8 minutes, if you can follow the lead, please.
Okay, thank you very much for this invitation. It's very important to be in this moment of this beautiful program. I will share my screen. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, we can now. Go ahead.
Yes, can you see?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning from Brazil for everybody. I will talk about the first Brazilian GIAHS. Brazil is an important country in South America, and the Brazilian GIAHS is in the central part of Brazil, is a savanna area. When the natural fire occurs, and in the rain season, and traditional communities deal with this reality in its management. It's an agro-silvopastoral they practice their crops and breeding in cultivated pasture, and during the rain season. It's very important that humans play a leading role in management of biodiversity, adapt seeds, and water conservation. So this is an important aspect of this system. In the highlands, the communities gather native flowers that are very, very important for their income and breeding in native fields during the dry season when the mountains keep moist in dry season. It's a process of transhumance to deal with different aspects and with different edapoclimatic characteristics. So it's to deal with agro-environment limits and potential. In this sense, the system deals with verticalities and the horizontality of the mountain, and the system is based on high biodiverse food and agriculture adapted to the local different edapoclimatic characteristics. They cultivate more than 90 species, and they breed 16 species of domestic animals. They deal with no type products, especially the native flowers, and we are talking about more than 300 species, and more than another 100 species for other kind of uses as medicinal practices. And it depends on the traditional and local associated knowledge for use and sustainable management of natural resources. It's the most conserved forest area in this region. And there is a potential of natural process and cycles. The management of the communities has centrality to biomass cycling, flow and matter energy with knowledge, and it's based on nature solutions. And the systems provides agro-ecosystem service for them and for the region. So some important community practices that they make. The first one is protection of water resources and repair forests in rivers using fire breaks to prevent the fire spreads to other areas, and also observing the direction of the winds, humidity, and plant vegetative cycle. And another one is selection, storage, and distribution of seeds locally adapted for agriculture and food, observing the food culture. That's another very, very important aspect. Polycultures combining different architectures of plants with maintenance of mulch over the soils, and also the management of fallow and crops rotation cycles between areas to rise soil pH and release nutrients. Maintains 30% of the population of flowers, native flowers, in the native grass field, to guarantee the continuity of these species with collection and the right point of maturation of the seeds, and also the enrichment native flowers fields with the seeds. Maintenance of stock ratio for cattle in native community pastures and the rustic cattle, it's fundamental for controlling the production of biomass with a high potential for the combustion of its material. So it's also a natural control for burning, and knowledge and care for the fauna and its function in keeping their whole system alive. They are organized socially in a regional commission of flower gatherers communities, how they call. And some of important practice of them is the development of community protocols of good practice of biodiverse soil and water conservation, technical assistance and academic research activities of capacity building in agroecology and resilience, recognition of the key role of women in the conservation of natural resources, and intergenerational transmission of knowledge, ensure the effective participation of human and young people in local activities and collegiate meetings in the dialogue with partners and governments for decision-making to access public policies and rights, strengthening income generation, thinking about local food markets and handcrafted and social visibility, and partnership with universities to monitor the evolution and resilience to climate change in dry land contexts with the key indicators of biodiversity, biomass, soil, carbon flux, income, and food security. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your quick presentation as well. Very, very helpful, to the point. And thank you for sharing with us this experience from the first GIAHS site in Brazil. That's much appreciated. Thank you. As we move on now to the last speaker, and then after that we'll take a 5 minutes break. And I'm pleased that Kimberly Sullivan is going to moderate the session after that. Thank you for alerting me to that. That's much welcome. Thank you. Let me now invite the next speaker, Mr. Liu Mo-chung, who's going to take on the next session and hopefully speak also for about 8 minutes. Over to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening from China. It is my pleasure to share with you about China's work and experience in GIAHS conservation and ecosystem restoration in this online celebration event for the 20th anniversary of GIAHS. As we all know that ecosystem supports all life on Earth. They provide us with priceless benefits, which we call them ecosystem services. And they are important for our physical and mental health and for our identity. In 1997, a paper published in a very famous journal, the Nature, showed that the average value of the world's ecosystem services is about $33 trillion every year. It is about 1.8 times of the global GDP in 1997. This fully proves the importance of ecosystem services for human well-being. However, in 2007, the United Nations Millennium Ecosystem Assessment showed that only 4% of 25 ecoservices have been enhanced in the past 50 years, and three of them is about food production, the crops, the livestock, the agriculture, and about 60% of ecosystem services are being degraded or used unsustainably. Most of them are regulation services, and some are the culture services. Thus, the United Nations Decade on Ecosystem Restoration was initiated. It aims to prevent, halt, and reverse the degradation of ecosystems, and it can help to end poverty, combat climate change, and prevent a mass extinction. And crucially, the restoring ecosystems increases the supply and quality of ecosystem services over time toward desired states. The GIAHS contains rich traditional indigenous wisdom in the process of interactions with the local nature ecosystems. The farmers in the heritage site summarize the adaptive technologies to overcome difficulties arising from limited natural resources and the dynamic climate conditions, and to improve the resources use efficiency, productivity, and sustainability. After long-term development and adaptation, it has formed the GIAHS, which conserve the health ecosystem and rich biodiversity, inherited indigenous culture, and provided a variety of products. That's GIAHS. Therefore, the GIAHS dynamic conservation and value money can provide a rich experience to adapt and protect fragile ecosystems, restore and govern degraded ecosystems. Next, I will share some cases to introduce the technology and experience of pollution prevention, ecosystem conservation, and restoration from China's GIAHS sites. The Qingtian rice fish culture system is the first GIAHS in China, and it was designated in 2005. This picture shows us this system can reduce some environmental pollution because of the material cycle between rice and fish. For example, the rice plants can use the nitrogen in fish feed, and therefore the nitrogen fertilization can be reduced. And from this table, we can see that the density of weeds in rice fish system is lower than the hybrid rice monoculture. And the figure 2 shows us that the rice fish system has a significant decrease in the density of rice pests. Thus, it can reduce the use of chemical herbicides and pesticides. We evaluated and compared the ecosystem services between the rice fish system and the hybrid rice monocropping. And we can see that the values of a traditional system are higher than the rice monocropping. Of course, there are also some negative effects that should be cut off, like the methane emission. We can see that the traditional system have low methane emission to the air. So the net value of ecosystem services we got under the traditional system is about 5 times than the rice monocropping. The Chongjiang Dong's rice fish stock system is located in the mountains of southwest China. Compared with the rice fish system, the land here is relatively barren. To maintain soil fertility, the farmers have introduced the ducks into the rice fish system. This is a traditional rice, glutinous rice, and this is a hybrid rice. It can be seen from these four pictures that the rice fish stock system has better soil fertility maintenance function, including the organic matter, the nitrogen, total phosphorus. And also the rice fish stock system can also effectively control the weeds in the rice fields as well as the pests and the diseases. The honey rice terraces system is both GIAHS and World Heritage designated by the UNESCO of United Nations. This system lasted for more than 1,300 years in the mountainous area, and in this system there are no reservoirs, but the water supply is abundant. The reason is forests on the top of the mountain can help in water conservation. We did a field experiment. A small puddle was dug on the ground under the trees, and we can see that after 2 hours, the puddle was full of water, which successfully proved its high water retention function. And the scientific data also proves that in this area, the soil moisture content of forest land is higher than that of the land forest land. Beside a paper published in Nature shows that the crop diversity is a possible solution to the disease control. The traditional glutinous and the hybrid mixture cultivation could increase the yield by 89% and reduce rice blast by 94%. The last case is the traditional Chinese daily gardens. This system is located on the Loess Plateau, and the soil erosion is very serious. From then on, the Yellow River in China turns yellow due to the increase of sediment. The jujube trees has a strong ability to extend roots in all directions, thus it can prevent soil erosion. It is a forest land, shrubland, grassland, and jujube garden. This picture shows that the amount of soil loss, and this picture is the soil conservation capacity. We can say that the jujube garden has a more obvious effect on soil conservation. And this table shows the economic value of the jujube forest ecosystem services in this county. For the Loess Plateau, the functions such as soil and water conservation, wind break and sand fixation are particularly important. So finally, there are some conclusions. The farmers in GIAHS sites have developed unique agriculture systems which provide specific ecosystem services as farmers have designed. The farmers have been adopting good agriculture practices to avoid the degradation of soil and water, and learn the mechanisms of ecosystem, the good agriculture practices, and the influencing factors of ecosystem restoration in GIAHS sites could prove useful inputs, and more information collection and scientific, social, and economic analysis are necessary. Yeah, that's all. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the speakers, and thank you for highlighting, particularly this combination of systems, rice, fish, and duck, and all the benefits it brings. It's really very good example of traditional innovation in conserving ecosystem services and all the benefits it provides that it highlighted. it's really a good example of ecosystem restoration and preservation of biodiversity, and maintaining the production of rice as well. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So we reach a stage now of the first part of this session. We'll have a 5 minutes break, and then we'll move on to the next session. I was really hoping to have 5 minutes for intervention, for a quick intervention, but I see that some colleagues have been putting some comments on the chat. And I hope that Kimberly, maybe with the next session, hopefully you can save some time and get some discussion, but it is a 20 minutes discussion slot anyway. So thank you again, everyone. You can just turn your camera off, I guess, and take a 5 minutes break, have a cup of tea or stretch your legs and come back, and Kimberly will take over for the next session. So thank you again very much, everyone.
Back, dear participants and friends. I'm Kimberly Sullivan from the FAO Office of Corporate Communications, and I'm so pleased to be here with you for this session celebrating 20 years of GIAHS. The second part of this technical session focuses on GIAHS and sustainable rural development. I hope that you have had a chance to be able to get some tea and to come back and relax, because we are going to have a whirlwind tour on our hands, from promoting high quality tea products in the Republic of Korea to learning about gastrotourism in Portugal, or women's groups creating new income streams for themselves, producing argan oil. We are fortunate to have guests here who will allow us to experience a virtual round the world trip today to learn about all of these exciting initiatives under the umbrella of GIAHS. And starting off this virtual journey, I am very pleased to invite Mr. Sang-Chul Ha, Mayor of Hadong County, Republic of Korea, to come to the screen. Please, Mr. Sang-Chul Ha, the floor is yours.
안녕하십니까. 대한민국 하동군수 하성철입니다. FAO 세계 중요 농업유산 20주년 기념 행사에 초청해 주신 총장님을 비롯한 관계자 여러분께 감사드립니다. 우리 하동군은 오늘 행사를 통해 현재와 미래 세대를 위한 식량 안보, 농업 생물 다양성, 전통 지식, 문화 다양성이 지속 가능하도록 하는 세계 중요 농업 유산 시스템이 더 크게 발전될 것이라고 기대합니다. 우리나라 차 10회지이자 대표적인 전통 수제차 생산 지역으로 알려진 경상남도 하동군 화계면은 현재까지도 차의 생산과 가공에 대한 전통 농업 방식이 전성 보존되고 있습니다. 해발 1200m가 넘는 지리산에 둘러싸여 있으며 남쪽으로는 섬진강과 화계천이 만나서 흐르는 천혜의 고장이기도 합니다. 하동 전통차 농업은 하동 사람들에 의해서 1200년간 지켜온 전통적 농업 시스템으로 산이 많고 평지가 적은 그런 불리한 자연 환경 속에서 지역 고유의 차 농업 환경과 문화를 보존, 개성해온 지혜의 산물입니다. 지형적으로 보면 화계면 전통 차밭은 섬진강과 화계천이 연접해 있어서 수분이 차밭에 자연적으로 공급됩니다. 즉 습도와 기온이 유지되면서 차 생산 시기에 기온차에서 차 재배에 적합한 환경을 갖추고 있기도 합니다. 또한 토양은 약산성이고 자갈이 많은 사력질 토양입니다. 차 나무 재배에 알맞은 그런 토지를 가지고 있습니다. 이러한 특질들은 1200여 년 동안 국내 차 생육의 불리한 지형적, 기후적 조건에서도 차 농업이 지속되고 보존될 수 있었던 이유입니다. 이렇듯 우리 하동 사람들과는 뗄래야 뗄 수 없는 전통 차 농업은 예부터 지역 사회를 유지하는 데 필요한 토대가 되어 왔습니다. 주민들은 현재까지도 농업 생산에서 사람의 개입을 최소화하고 자연과 공생하는 무농약 자연 친화적 농업 시스템으로 토지를 이용하고 관리하고 있습니다. 그 예로 수확이 끝난 뒤에는 차나무 전지전정으로 생긴 부산물을 차밭에 그대로 두어 잡초를 방지하고 또 퇴비 역할을 하게 합니다. 또한 친환경 차밭을 보존하기 위해서 가축을 기르지 않습니다. 화계면 일대에는 가축 사육 농가가 없습니다. 다른 작물에도 농약을 치지 않고 주민들의 자발적인 그런 노력들이 오랫동안 이어져 왔습니다. 전통적인 차밭은 차나무와 함께 주변에 다양한 유실수와 임산물 함께 재배되고 있습니다. 차밭의 일조량 조절, 토양의 성분과 비옥도 유지에 좋은 영향을 미쳐서 다양한 차 맛을 가진 전통차가 생산되고 있습니다. 하동의 차는 생태적으로도 다양한 지리산권의 동식물 생태계 서식 공간을 연결해주는 생태축 역할을 하고 있습니다. 종의 수용처 및 공급처 역할을 동시에 해온 것입니다. 경관적으로도 하동차밭은 중국, 일본과는 다르게 산림부 경사지의 식생 및 암석 등과 함께 어우러져서 차나무가 군락을 이루고 있기 때문에 주변 산림 경관과 조화가 잘 되고 있습니다. 계절별로 아름다운 경관을 연출하고 있습니다. 이러한 대한민국 하동의 전통차 농업 시스템은 현재와 미래 시대를 위한 농업 생물의 다양성과 전통 지식, 문화 다양성 및 지속 가능하고 공평한 개발에 탁월한 공헌을 하고 그래서 그 가치를 인정받아서 2017년 세계 중요 농업유산으로 등재된 바 있습니다. 우리 하동의 전통차 농업은 미래의 자원으로서 우리 하동군은 차농업의 가치를 높이기 위해서 다양한 방식으로 하동의 전통차 농업을 보존해 왔습니다. 전통적인 방식의 차 재배 및 가공 기술이 유지되어서 산업의 성장을 이루고 있습니다. 지역 내에는 1천여 가구가 721헥타르 면적의 차를 재배하고 있습니다. 180여 개의 녹차 및 다류의 가공업체들이 운영되고 있으며 차 재배 농가와 협력해서 생산, 가공, 유통을 위한 기반을 구축하고 있습니다. 하동군에서는 2007년 녹차 연구소를 설립했습니다. 지역 내 녹차 가공업체의 기술, 녹차 안전성, 그리고 시험 분석 등의 기능을 지원하고 유전적으로 우수한 개체를 개성하고 발굴해서 농가에 보급하고 있기도 합니다. 차 농업의 유지, 녹차 산업의 발전에 필요한 기반 시설과 장비 지원을 통한 차 재배 농가와 함께 차 관련 업체의 성장 발전을 함께 도모하고 있습니다. 또한 차 문화와 연계한 하동 야생차 문화축제를 25년째 추진하고 있습니다. 차밭의 다원적인 활용을 정진하고 있는 것입니다. 이제는 세계 중요 농업유산인 하동차가 마시는 차에서 눈과 몸으로 즐기는 차 산업으로 발전되어 왔습니다. 경관이 아름다운 다원을 배경으로 명상과 요가를 하고 차를 즐기는 다원 투어와 다숙을 할 수 있습니다. 식품뿐만 아니라 뷰티, 음료 등 차 산업을 더욱 확장시키기 위해서 액션 플랜을 단계별로 추진하고 있습니다. 특히 내년에 개최될 2023 하동 세계차 엑스포는 하동 차 산업의 미래 발전 방향을 제시할 것입니다. 2023년 5월 4일부터 한 달간 개최될 하동 세계차 엑스포는 차 분야에서는 대한민국 최초의 정부 공식 승인 국제 행사이기도 합니다. 1200여 년을 이어온 차의 역사를 경험하고 전통 차 문화를 체험하면서 전 세계인의 몸과 마음을 치유하는 그런 엑스포가 되리라 기대합니다. 차는 눈, 코, 입으로 마신다고 합니다. 내년에 있을 엑스포를 통해서 차의 역사와 미래를 한눈에 볼 수 있는 차의 맛, 향, 그리고 아름다운 가치를 재발견할 수 있도록 최선을 다하겠습니다. 대한민국 하동의 자연스러운 아름다움을 함께 즐길 수 있는 2023년 하동세계차 엑스포에 여러분들을 초대합니다.
Thank you so much, Mr. Song, for that fascinating overview. I mean, I think that we are all very excited about the 2023 Hadong World Tea Expo and a chance to celebrate a 1,200-year-old tradition with your green tea. That was really fascinating, and I have the feeling that there are going to be a lot of questions raised in this session. I just want to remind you before we go into our next speaker to put any of your questions into the chat function, and we will be picking up those questions at the end when we go to the question and answer. So it's a great chance to be able to ask those questions that arise as we're looking at and listening to our speakers. I'm very pleased to be able to announce our next speaker, Ms. Tereso Agüero from the Office of Rural Development Policies of the Ministry of Agriculture in Chile. Ms. Agüero, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Buenos días.
Good afternoon. Can you see my screen? Yes, we can. Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to apologize for my voice. I have a cold, but I'll do my best. I hope you can understand me. First of all, I'd like to thank the organizers. Just a few moments, please. There we go. I think you can see my screen, my presentation in full screen mode now. I'd like to thank the organizers at the FAO for inviting Chile to take part in this event. Chile is a country that joined the GIAHS initiative, and we also have one of the first GIAHS pilot sites in our country, and that is why it is particularly relevant for us to be here today. I'd like to share our experience on our Chiloé GIAHS site brand. The Chiloé archipelago was recognized as a GIAHS site in 2011. It's located in the south of Chile, and it's a large island with 40 smaller islands, which are not all inhabited. This archipelago was recognized as a GIAHS site due to its Chilota agriculture, so the agriculture of Chiloé. As regards the implementation of the GIAHS program in the archipelago, we look at how to provide added value to the products and services of family farming businesses in the territory which fulfill the GIAHS criteria. We have several mechanisms at country level. For example, the industrial property law, which recognizes several instruments. For example, the certification label, which is similar to geographical origin and designation of origin labels, which you're probably familiar with. The aim of the certification label is to identify the specificities of products, and it is provided by an institution which guarantees that these products comply with the characteristics of a specific regulation that has been set out. In 2013, we attributed the certification label for the Chiloé GIAHS brand. It was attributed by the provincial presidential delegation of Chiloé. And As part of this label, there is a regulation regarding the use of the label. It should be used for products from the Chiloé archipelago as well as services. And feel free to contact us if you need any further information. But here you have a few details about how the brand works, how the label works, some of the criteria. And this is what's important. There are specific criteria for each product and service which is granted this label. So, for example, for agroforestry livestock products, for tourism, which can be rural countryside tourism, catering, restaurants. All of these products must fulfill certain criteria. So, for example, for agro livestock products, they must fulfill with these criteria, but they must come from diversified ecosystems. They have to be from Chiloé, and they have to be locally adapted races or species of animals or local varieties of plants from Chiloé, which are produced using the traditional practices of local farmers. For example, for catering or tourism services, they have to work with farmers, local farmers, in the tourism packages that they offer. Since 2013, so 9 years down the line, this brand was registered, this label was registered. And as we've seen over the years, it is an instrument which is able to strengthen these traditional production systems, and it also fosters GIAHS implementation. It's also given greater visibility to these systems, which are resilient, and regarding their contribution to sustainable food systems. So this project allows us to continue to promote diversified food systems, as well as sustainable production based on best practices, organic or environmentally friendly production, or a sustainable agriculture that doesn't use synthesized chemicals. So it doesn't necessarily have to be certified organic agriculture, but it does have to be sustainable. So this is what the brand aims to promote. And it also fosters food security and sovereignty, because we're working with farmers and livestock farmers who are local. It also allows us to strengthen the local economy based on a cultural identity-focused form of territorial development. This is the foundation of this label. However, there have been challenges throughout the implementation of this label. And our challenges that lie ahead are, for example, to continue strengthening the positioning of the label. It's a label which is still not very well known within the archipelago, but also at national level, so it needs greater visibility. And we also need a marketing strategy for family farming agriculture products. And we need to showcase their specific production methods that have been used to produce these products. So we need to focus on marketing. And we also need to disseminate the label. We've done this over the past few years, but we need to do so even to an even greater extent in the years to come. We also need to showcase the attributes of the products and services with the label and to demonstrate that they comply with the criteria established. That's all I wanted to say. I hope my voice was okay. Thank you very much.
Fascinating look at the experiences of Chile and of course topics like certification, geographic indication, and how to put that together with tourism and make sure that tourists are really understanding the territory that they're in and all of the cultures and traditions. This is fascinating look. And of course, with the long tradition of Chile having participated in GIAHS, please put any questions that you might have on this into the chat, and we will certainly come to them, and we can ask Ms. Agüero directly in the question and answer session. Thank you so much. And now we've gone to Korea, we've been to Chile. Now we are going to move across the ocean again, and a very warm welcome to our next speaker. Who is, apologies, right now we're going to go speak with Ms. Susan Lucio from the Association of Development for the region of Alto Tamega in Portugal. Please, Ms. Lucio, the floor is yours and you have 10 minutes.
Thank you so much for having us. Good afternoon. With my presentation, I intend to explain briefly how we promote Barroso GIAHS by using the gastronomy and the Eco Museum. So Barroso area is located in the north of Portugal, in Alto Tamega region, in the border with Spain. It is constituted by Boticas and Montalegre, 2 of the 6 municipalities. Barroso agrarian system was classified as GIAHS territory in April 2018, and it is located in a mountain region where farms are very small and the agriculture is basically a subsistence. Within each village, the neighbors help one another and the tasks are undertaken together. Communitarianism is one of the main particularities of the Barroso agro-silvo-pastoral system. The Barroso forest has several important roles concerning tourism. These forests became very popular because of their natural paths and hiking trails. The nature tourism brings a great amount of tourists, specifically to contact with these natural surroundings. The Eco Museum project started in 1998, and it has a very important role regarding the promotion of traditions and old agricultural activities. The main goal for the creation of this Eco Museum was to revitalize the traditions involving not only the age population, but also the young people, and it became very important that the Eco Museum is now a reference to the population of Barroso. The activities promoted are so diverse and interesting that even small children find the Eco Museum a place to enjoy. The outdoor activities call people all over the north of Portugal and Spain. As you can see in the map, the Eco Museum is divided in the main building and several other buildings that are smaller. The main building is placed on the historical center of Montalegre, which is the beginning of everything related to the Eco Museum of Barroso. It is a place where children from the schools visit and have cultural activities. The other Eco Museum buildings are spread all over the territory in both municipalities. It is important to mention the interaction of the young people with older population. Some of these buildings are smaller and thematic, and others are bigger and more generic, representing the way of life of centuries ago. The buildings used for the Eco Museums are old family houses, which are bigger, but there are also village communitarian ovens and also stalls where animals were kept long ago. All buildings were recovered and prepared to receive visitors. So Ecomuseum organizes several activities regarding tourism, such as organized visits to the local patrimony, exhibitions, exhibitions, hiking trails, school visits, recreating all traditions regarding agricultural and cultural activities, allowing the tourists to live the reality of these traditions and also participate in the experience. Concerning gastronomy, we have the Alto Tâmega Tabernas Network, which was created by ADRAT in 2004 in order to preserve and promote the gastronomic habits and culture of this region. The main goal of these typical restaurants is to implement a new concept of restaurant based on family traditional cuisine, where the public can find local products and dishes in private kitchens. In Barroso, there are 7 restaurants that belong to this network, which serve typical dishes to promote the region through the high-quality cuisine and attract tourists that appreciate good quality food produced by the family that own the restaurant. The Valsipam project is a project supported by the European framework called Interreg Sudway. It is currently ongoing and it aims to create a network of GIAHS, territories, and unique and singular agricultural spaces of the Sudwest space to improve their management and valorization methods. The Sudwest space includes 3 countries, Portugal, Spain, and a part of France. The activities of the project will allow to create and test innovative solutions that will contribute to protect the heritage and promote its socioeconomic development based on sustainable exploitation of the resources. The project activities originate some results that are already concluded, which are a transnational strategy for sustainable touristic management, a creation of touristic packages, elaboration of fan trips that allow the press and other tourist operators to know and experience the tourist packages, a common promotion strategy, and development of a brand for the commercialization of GIAHS agri-food products and services. We still don't have any numbers regarding the contribution of this project to the increase of visitors to the territory, but we are very positive that the very good initiative, it will have great outcomes for the GIAHS community that participates within the project. We have a new project ongoing. This is a new project that, although it's not related to the tourism, it's very interesting, so I'll just make a brief reference. The association, it was not done by ADRAT, it was another association called Aquavalor. It had a project approved called Digital Ecosystem Model for Barroso GIAHS. It is intended to develop a technological system that will implement functionalities to monitor air, soil, and water quality. If anyone would like more details, I can provide the information or help establish contact with the association that is the promoter of this project. Finally, as a last remark, we also have it's very important to mention that the Portuguese Ministry of Agriculture, as foreseen for the next Rural Development Framework support measures to the GIAHS territory producers, which means that farmers will have some financial support to their work, contributing this way to help producers to continue their traditional activities. Thank you very much, and congratulations to all the organizers for this amazing event. Thank you.
Excellent, Ms. Lucia. It was a fascinating look at the activities that you're doing. And I really love the way that you in the presentation showed how you're bringing together agricultural communities, tourism, trying to get more young people excited about it, which of course this is an area that's important to us. And of course, traditional diets, traditional food with your tabernas program, and fascinating about the Valsipan project, also bringing together 3 countries so that you're working together to show this. So this is great. And once again, I really suggest that those of you who are viewing this, our participants, please, any questions that you have on this, touching upon so many areas. It's fascinating for us in our question and answer discussion. So thank you so much. And now I'm going to move across the world to the other side. We're going to go back to Asia, and I am very happy to be able to give the floor to Miss Judy Sibago, Director for Research and Development Center for the Ufago Rice Terraces at Ifago State University in the Philippines. Ms. Bago joins us with a video message. Thank you. My technical colleagues, are we able to start that message?
Hi, greetings. Actually, it's not a recorded message.
Oh, even better.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. Now, I'd like to present the our yeah, my title of my presentation this evening here and morning there is safeguarding agricultural heritage through sustainable tourism. So, as you know, Ifugao is the only GIAHS in the Philippines and it's located here. And GIAHS, Ifugao is also the UNESCO and GIAHS at the same time. And it's a system of rice terraces, forests, settlements, Sweden farm, and water bodies. And my focus is more on the sustainable tourism management here in our province, which we have these structures, which usually these are local government initiated cultural activities in terms of management, and also with the partnership with the private sector and other stakeholders. And also, in terms of our goals here, is that we have, it's really the purpose here is to appreciate culture while also exploring our GIAHS concepts, which is to conserve the architecture of indigenous peoples for our next generation. And obviously, our key stakeholders are our communities, our residents, our farmers, and our tourism industry. And we have here economic attitude and to assets, and these are the rice services. Oops. And who are those people using our tourism our tourism is of course for our local organizations, our local tourism industry. And we have been using our assets in terms, for example, on weaving. And these were highlighted more during the pandemic when people went back home to more home industries like weaving, on handicrafts and other local industries. And also during the pandemic, we revisited our tourism sites and we have time to reassess and even have some geomapping. And also we have repaired facilities for tourism. And also we've been rebuilding relationship between man and nature. And also we've been continuing research on tourism management amidst the pandemic. And even now we have been actually still doing this and to improve our tourism, especially in the GIAHS areas. And, you know, during the pandemic, we also discovered potential attractions in our local communities. And here is what we are currently doing now, is to come up with an Ifugao tourism code that's really based or anchored on GIAHS concepts. And it will really help for our communities to appreciate more our terraces, more than just like selling this to tourists. No, we are really in partnership with our local government units that people will explore culture while also appreciating the value of our nature and our GIAHS sites. I think that's all, and thank you. Yes.
Fantastic, Mr. Bago. Thank you so much for that presentation in person. Thank you. Apologies for my confusion in the beginning. And beautiful photos, of course, to see from the Philippines. And it's wonderful to see also the tourism industry and also academic institutions together. So that's a nice mix as well. Again, please, any questions for Mr. Bago, please put them into the chat. And at the end of this section, we will come to those. I'm very pleased now. We've had such an overview around the world, and I'm pleased now to introduce our last speaker for this section. And I'm now pleased to welcome Ms. Iman Tami Alami, who's the research director at INRA in Morocco. And please, Ms. Alami, the floor is yours. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to thank the FAO for inviting me to participate in this important event. I also thank all the organizers. I am honored to share with you my intervention or my presentation at this virtual technical session on the celebration of the 20th anniversary session on the anniversary of the CIPA program, which concern women. My presentation will be done in French. Donc, je vais vous présenter l'autonomisation des femmes.
And so my subject will be the empowerment of women and income diversification, in particular the case of argan oil. How can we change the slides? I don't seem to be able to do it on my side. Maybe I should stop screen sharing.
Okay, it's gone. Comme introduction,
by way of introduction, I'm going to try to give a few definitions on empowerment, economic empowerment of women, which is one of the essential entry points for the achievement of gender equality. And this empowerment is a process by which women increase their human, financial, and material capital as they take advantage of economic opportunities. Put differently, it's women acquiring power that enables them to improve their socio-economic conditions, their livelihoods, and achieve a better integration in society. So basically, it's a woman's capacity to act independently at all different levels, economic, social, or political. Now, in Morocco, we are witnessing a steady evolution in the legislative framework to improve the conditions of women. There is a political will, in the sense, that is expressed at the highest levels of government. And we've seen considerable progress in terms of gender equality and women's empowerment. We have a national program for women's empowerment, and the rights of women have been on the agenda of different government programs for a long time. I can give an example, the so-called GIAHS strategy, the Green Generation Strategy, a new vision for agriculture in Morocco, rooted in solidarity, a strategy for small-scale farmers, rural women, and youth, and the farmers in mountain areas are the main targets of this strategy. A strategy that aims at providing rural women new development tools that will include also the creation of cooperatives and associations, and to support them at a social level to further their empowerment. An organization rooted in solidarity is the ideal framework for women's empowerment, and women's cooperatives are an organizational approach that can help women express their capacity and their aptitude to live well, having control over their income and being able to accumulate capital. And this has a positive impact on both individual and collective empowerment. And here we have a few figures. Women are present throughout the Moroccan cooperative fabric in all sectors of activity, in all economic sectors, and in all regions of the country. And you see there the number of cooperatives as emerges from a June 2020 census, so over 34,000 cooperatives. And 60% of these cooperatives are agricultural cooperatives. And 17% of these cooperatives are made up of women alone. So the agro-silvo-pastoral system of argan oil in this region is located in this area where you have the highest number of these women's cooperatives. The number is very high, 830,000, over 830,000 hectares. 75% of that 830,000 hectares is in mountainous areas, and over 300,000 rural households are involved in this, with a production of 4,500 tons of argan oil. 1,200 tons of this argan oil are exported by these 850 cooperatives of women. And this is a biosphere reserve, which has been recognized since 1998, and this site has been considered a GIAHS since 2018. The ancestral knowledge linked to argan oil production are very important, and this really has been the heritage of women, handed down by women. Agdal is a quite ingenious community tool for the management of this resource in the forest. The fruit and the processing of this fruit is managed in a way with manual extraction of argan oil. And then there are different uses of the argan tree products, the oil, the pulp that can be used also for animal feed production, and as well as poultry and doves. And then the shell is used as a fuel source by local population. So it does have multiple uses. And here I would like to highlight the roles of women. Their role doesn't consist only in dealing with argan production. There's a range of roles, including forest management, agriculture on terraces, on the terraced agricultural land area, and then also fruit gathering, processing argan, and then also the retail, the marketing of the argan oil. So the whole value chain of argan oil is evolving, and it contributes to women's empowerment. And in this graph, you can see the steady growth in the number of cooperatives between 2007 and 2022. The number has doubled. So twice as many cooperatives as there were, and women are the drivers of the production of argan oil, all the way from the traditional processing methods to a more mechanized production. And you see in the photo the two different approaches. 10% of the businesses are private and run by women. 4,500 tons is the total production. 1,200 tons are exported. And there too, there is a steady growth from 800 tons to a much larger figure in 20 times. And this, the revenue generated is increasing steadily as well. There also is a diversification in the types of products relating to argan oil, with the therapeutic potential of argan oil being used in different products. Soaps are produced, shampoos, a range of argan oil-based cosmetic and other products. And therefore, the impact on women's empowerment has been highly significant. Organizational capacity has been strengthened, as well as governance and management of the cooperatives themselves. Also, marketing and retail capacity of argan tree products, both nationally and internationally, has been observed. And employability of women has increased. There are about 10,000 members of the cooperatives, a very significant number. So overall, this has had a number of positive impacts, including higher school attendance rates of children, benefits in terms of health of households. And so there are many different opportunities to enhance empowerment, the natural dimensions in agriculture, but also organization upstream, so production of the argan fruit, forest management, also the traditional part of the argan oil production, but then a diversification of products further downstream with the different parts of the argan oil. And then also strengthening cooperation with research and scientific representatives, and support to the capacity of women. So much can be done also to improve the quality of the product and to meet national and international health and hygiene standards of production. And then, of course, governance and marketing skills can be strengthened. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
So much, Ms. Salami. That's a fascinating look, personally, of the argan oil. So I can say it's a wonderful product, and I am very happy to see you discussing women's cooperatives and how this is making such a difference to them, and how they have the opportunity. And I do know what you said, that 850 different women's cooperatives working with this, which is fascinating. I am going to have questions that we are preparing for you now. Before we go into the question and answer session, we're going to a nice segue. After speaking about women's cooperatives, we're going to see a short slideshow about women in the agriculture sector, and then we will return immediately with Q&A. Thank you to my colleagues for putting on this short slideshow.
Je dois départager.
Fantastic, beautiful around the world. We are going to do a very quick round for all of the speakers that we've had here. I'd like to ask them one question, and then we will be returning as well to our GIAHS coordinator to be able to ask additional questions that have more to do with how we're selected for a site and other things that we have here. But after all of those talks, I really would like to ask perhaps each of the presenters what they think is most important, what they've seen speaking with these cooperatives, speaking with the tourism sector, speaking with agricultural communities. What do you think in a short 1-minute response is most important that you hear from people about having been selected for a GIAHS site? Ms. Lucio, could I start with you? A short response.
Hi, hello. About the I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. I'm sorry.
I'm asking the same question to everyone. What is, speaking with your communities and the different, obviously speaking about tourism and agriculture sector and youth groups and women's associations, what has been some of the feedback that you've been getting about the importance of being selected a GIAHS site? What has that meant to them?
Okay. I think the population in general are very proud to be a part of a patrimony that is classified, and I think they have this big pride in being a part of this, and also they are making a big effort to promote the products as being GIAHS products, to increase the tourists and to increase the productions. and also to develop more the socioeconomic farms that they own. So I think that's the main thing, that they are very proud of being a GIAHS site.
Great answer. Thank you very much. Ms. Agüero, would I be able to ask you as well, from the perspective of Chile, what have you been hearing about how the communities feel about having been selected a GIAHS site and what this means to them?
Yes, thank you very much. And I have the same answer as Suzanne, actually. When the representative of the FAO in Chile granted recognition to communities in the Chiloé archipelago, we heard from farmers that they felt very proud that what they had been doing since forever was recognized internationally, knowledge that's been transmitted from generation to generation, and everything related to agriculture and these practices. And they're the ones who are continuing to develop the GIAHS site on a day-to-day basis. And of course, there needs to be support from private and public stakeholders as well. That's very important when it comes to maintaining this partnership. As part of this program, it's important to have the involvement of civil society, public and private sectors. Thank you.
If I could turn it now for the perspective on the Philippines, if we could bring Mr. Vago to the screen.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Yes,
yeah,
what is the perspective that you see from the Philippines? With the
first
question?
of all, the recognition of being a GIAHS site is that it actually gave importance to indigenous knowledge, systems, and practices of indigenous peoples here in Ifugao, especially or related to traditional agriculture. Second is that it actually increased the value of the rice terraces and its products. And third is that our local government units are actually forced to have policies towards the conservation or safeguarding of the GIAHS sites. And this can be seen with in terms of our education system here in the province, that we have what we call the integration of indigenous knowledge in the curriculum, that for children to learn about the concept of GIAHS. And I think that's one big takeaway being recognized as a GIAHS site. Thank you.
Fantastic. And now I'd like to ask the same question to Ms. Salami, and of course, bringing in perspectives from the women's cooperatives with whom you're working as well, about the importance of having been selected a GIAHS site.
Okay, thank you very much. C'est une occasion de préserver.
I'd say it's an opportunity to preserve and showcase the traditional practices in agriculture, and particularly in the field of argan oil. It also leads to an increased production of the fruits and oil, coupled with an increase in revenue, which in turn supports empowerment of women working in the associative environment.
We also have a question for the GIAHS coordinator, but while I have all the countries here, I'm going to do reverse order and ask a question that has come in on the chat from Mr. Abdelhakim Miswai, is how has your country, Ms. Salami, mobilized resources to promote GIAHS sites? How have you done that in Morocco? Yeah. And I'll ask each.
On a beaucoup de relations avec, on a des services.
A number of services for technology transfer.
In such institutions who can be the links between the population and especially this cooperative, this association of women's. Yes, and we give them knowledge and the process, we help them. And we work, our activities of research is their problem. we transfer their problem in our activities of research. We work together.
Fantastic. That's the best way to integrate it. Yeah. Thank you so much. And Mr. Bago, if I could ask you the same question. So how does the Philippines mobilize the resources to promote GIAHS activities?
Yeah, basically for us here in the province, the Lone University here is actually created the center where I am now, the director for GIAHS, and we are actually doing a lot of programs, human capacity building activities in partnership with our local government units. So we have training capacities for what we call Sotomayor-Meisters, and that these are our trainees are from local communities, direct stakeholders, and that and also the local government units here are very supportive in our activities, and they're actually sending their participants. They're also funding activities in the grassroots. So I think it's a collaborative effort from the academe to the local government units and in the villages. I think that's what we are doing here in the province.
Perfect, excellent answer. And as well, Ms. Lucio, if I could ask you the same question about what is being done in Portugal.
Based on my presentation, the Eco Museum and all the initiatives and activities that the Eco Museum has been undertaking, even before the GIAHS classification, it had already several activities that aim to promote and preserve the traditions and the activities, the agricultural activities. Also now, it just came out last month that the Portuguese ministry has developed these measures to support financially the producers, which will help the producers. They will make this application online, and they will have a small contribution to their work. Also, we are trying to get involved in several European projects. We have one, and other associations of the region also are applying for European funds to develop initiatives and projects regarding the GIAHS and the patrimony and the protection of the heritage.
Fantastic. And before I move on to Ms. Agüero, we got a follow-up question that I think is quite interesting. Even the population is very proud to have this, to be recognized for this, but how do you see it in Portugal? Do they also see it as a responsibility?
A response to?
A responsibility. So
a responsibility.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a big responsibility to have this classification and to maintain it. Mm-hmm. Although there is no monitoring, regular monitoring, the Barroso GIAHS does elaborate this annual report of activities, of the GIAHS activities, and we submitted to FAO, so they know what we are doing to implement the action plan and activities that promote the GIAHS. So that's
fantastic. Okay, Ms. Agüero, if we could follow with Chile, the same question. So we're asking about how you have the resources to be able to promote this standing, and also if the communities with which you're working see this also as a responsibility.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. It's a constant effort undertaken by the Ministry of Agriculture, which coordinates the GIAHS projects at national level alongside other ministries, the public services sector, and it is responsible for mobilizing funding. One of the focuses is the development of equipment for family farmers. This is taking place in GIAHS sites across the country, as well as the Chiloé GIAHS site. So the Ministry of Agriculture is undertaking efforts in these areas, for example, in terms of capacity building and fostering agroecology, biodiversity, conservation, marketing, for example. But projects for the safeguarding of food and agricultural heritage systems are also underway with the associations working alongside the Ministry for Agriculture. And the regional governments also provide continued support with resources that enable us to undertake activities on a yearly basis in the archipelago.
Excellent overview of many different regions and how it is working in the regions and what the different stakeholders are saying about this. So this gives us a great idea. I think that this is a good moment to pull up our GIAHS coordinator for a couple of questions. Specifically, we have a couple of questions coming in. One is what are the types of things that are evaluated when countries come in interested in a GIAHS site? So I'd like to hear that from the FAO perspective. And then there's a very specific question that to also throw in there is there interest in supporting small-scale farmers in the Sudan? So that was a question that came through the chat. If we could respond to those, please.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes.
Could you repeat the first answer? I could not capture the well.
Of course, these are questions that came on. One, a very specific one of interest in the Sudan, working with small-scale farmers, if this could be something of interest. And in general, if you could tell us what you're looking for when you're looking at ideas when countries have them for a GIAHS site. What is the specific criteria?
Criteria is there are 5 criteria that the first criteria I must very quickly explain. I'm sorry, and there are GIAHS website which explain these 5 criteria and also the procedure you should take in application of the GIAHS. All these informations are sufficiently provided in our homepage, so please refer it afterwards. And if you have further questions about these, you can write to us, GIAHS Secretariat email to us. Very briefly, first of all, agriculture must exist and function very well and to support the livelihood and food security of the community. This is a criteria number 1. And number 2, and local and traditional knowledge should be existing and function. Agrobiodiversity must be observed. And number 4, cultures or social institutions exist and also function remarkable performance. Now, last one, the 5th one of the criteria is landscapes must be observed as a result of the long-term farmers' intervention with nature. So all these 5 criteria must be fulfilled. And as a composite concept of these 5 criteria, both sides. So you must also explain by using these 5 criteria, what is the global significance, global importance of your proposal site? This is a criteria, entire structure of the criteria. And you are requested to the proposal document following the GIAHS proposal guidelines. And this is a very brief answer to the first question. And number 2 is, I'm sorry, I'm still recovering the sickness, so I easily forget.
No, we've covered a lot of ground here, so understood. The second was a specific question about agricultural communities in the Sudan, if there is interest in that.
And that is written in the chat box.
Yes.
Yes, GIAHS esteemed the farming community and farmers' existence and involvement. So when the proposal is made, local farming community or farmers must be fully I'm sorry, can I continue?
You could please, yes, please continue. I think they have to close the microphone. Thank you. Ms. Soltani, may I ask to close the microphone, please? Or technical colleagues, could we close that out and go back to Mr. Endo, please?
Yes. First of all, when you make a proposal document, you have to involve small farmers community, farming community in the rural areas on the proposed GIAHS site fully. You must involve them and make them a chance to take a well-advanced engagement, advanced agreement, consent, prior informed consent. I forgot the name. Prior informed consent must be very fundamental starting point of the GIAHS. And question, as far as I remember, question may refer to whether there is any office in the country. I think I'm.
Yes, I think that there's an additional question, if I may, Mr. Endo. There is also a question about financing that I think is quite interesting, if you'd like to ask that. The question is there any access and mechanism for private sector and international financial institutions to co-contribute to these GIAHS projects?
Yes, unfortunately, FAO doesn't have financial resources to support the writing the original proposal document. In most of the cases, a national government public fund or local government public fund are most of the financial resources. But sometimes member countries look for some donor, specific donor, or some specific funding mechanism to support them writing. So it is entirely up to the proposing countries which fund to be used. Of course, the FAO is trying to support any linkage of this any country or any region who is looking for donors or funding sources. We can also try to make a link or facilitation of the dialogue.
Okay, fascinating. If it's all right with you, I'd also like to ask you a question that I might turn back as well to our panelists. We discussed as well eco-labeling and geographic indicators, and that's quite a fascinating area. What does FAO do to help promote this? And then I'd like to turn over as well to the country's panelists who have discussed it and see what they have been seeing from the country perspective, the effect that this has been having. So first, I'd like to hear the FAO perspective. Mr. Endo.
Yes, unfortunately, GIAHS logo cannot be used for commercial purposes. GIAHS logo we can see as it is now are not allowed to be put on the agriculture product for commercial sales promotion. But what we will do to facilitate or support them GIAHS sites to promote their sales of the agriculture products is we are trying to collect information or experiences all GIAHS sites, what we are doing for promotion of our agriculture products. For example, Chile is implementing the Chiloé Island labeling, or many Japanese sites are promoting certificate of agriculture products or labeling system, their own regulation or own standard. So we are collecting this information and disseminate the other GIAHS site and support how you can work on the labeling system or certification system to promote your GIAHS site products to the market. So what is the key factor here is that I'm recommending that all GIAHS sites to make the value of the GIAHS sites at the most through this certification system. GIAHS has a high potential to do that because GIAHS has many valuable value in its own agriculture systems. So you must make your hidden and untold these ecological values or agrobiological value, traditional knowledge value, landscape value into the product marketing values. So this is a key message, and this is what we need to do and to strengthen from our activities now. I'm going to organize a symposium in Japan in November, focusing on agriculture products, promotion of agriculture product labeling system, new market supply chain system. I invite Ms. Teresa Aguero or Susan Lucio from these sites and ask them to make a presentation, as well as other Japanese and Valencia sites or Moroccan sites.
Fascinating. And I think that this is one of the interesting things on GIAHS. If the participants agree, the panelists, I'd like to ask them, in this type of a structure, learning from all of the experiences from other countries across the world, learning from what they're doing, does this help you also when you're putting together your own strategies? If it's okay, I'd make a quick round and perhaps end with Mr. Endo as his experience with GIAHS coordinator, how this helps, and then we will be moving on to the final section. Ms. Agüero, could I start with you? Just a quick 1-minute response.
Muchas gracias. Mi respuesta es absoluta y es absolutamente.
My response is yes, absolutely. It's essential to share experience and lessons learned among participating countries. It's very enriching, and the GIAHS Secretariat knows very well that Chile is very interested in hearing the experiences of other countries, and the remote format of meetings recently has allowed us to connect with other Spanish-speaking countries in particular, in order to foster a greater participation in these exchanges among our countries. And it's allowed us to have a perspective beyond that of the agricultural and environmental ministries who are leading these initiatives. It's important to know how these projects can be supported by public institutions in order to promote GIAHS sites. So we do find these experiences extremely important.
So we valorize very much the labeling, and in the Valsipam project, one of the activities was to create a label for the products and services that come from the GIAHS sites that participate in the project. For now, it has already a regulation and it has been registered. But the label is, for now, it's for the project partners, but it will be extended to other GIAHS sites that may want to use the label, to use it on the products from the site and the services as well. Yes, it's very important.
Okay, fantastic. I think unfortunately for time, as always, the discussion is always so fascinating and we have so much expertise here, but I will give a short word to Mr. Endo, and then we will be passing on to our chief scientist for the closing. So Mr. Endo, just your closing thoughts about the network of GIAHS and how we can move forward.
Yes, as I said, we have been spending so much time. We had to spend so much resources and time for supporting the GIAHS proposal making. But from now on, we are trying to more use our resources and time for communication or partnership making among already existing GIAHS sites, to ask them to provide information, and we digest and shuffle and analysis and feed them back as more one-step advanced knowledge product to share among all GIAHS sites to implement their own specific activities. And GIAHS is trying to make more emphasis on its function as a rural development tools. GIAHS has a high potential. GIAHS approach has a high potential to make it as a tool for rural development. So as many Chinese GIAHS sites shows, and many Japanese, Korean, or European, African, all GIAHS sites are now starting their own specific activities. So we make a collecting information and analysis, and also make a guideline or guidance document, and to share all these information amongst GIAHS stakeholders all over the world. This is a new development I'd like to emphasize for the next GIAHS activity, next generation of the GIAHS activities. And thank you very, very much for all the participants, and your contribution was so great, and also interpreters and coordinators and MCs as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Jendo. Thank you to all of the panelists. This has been a fascinating session, and it gives me great pleasure now to turn over for concluding remarks Ms. Ismahane Elewalti. She is the Chief Scientist of FAO, and she will be concluding our session. If we could bring her to the floor. Ms. Elewalti, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kimberly, and thank you very much to all the speakers and for organizing this great event. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted really to deliver the closing remark where we celebrate 20 years of the globally important Agricultural Heritage Systems program of FAO. Today, ministers, ambassadors, researchers, mayors, government officials, as well as local communities and indigenous people have shared with us the impact this program has had and their efforts to implement rural development action under GIAHS framework. It was exciting to see during just one day of celebration the wide variety of stakeholders that are involved in GIAHS. And as a matter of fact, those are shareholders of the concept per se. As the FAO Chief Scientist, I was particularly impressed to hear that together with the preservation of cultural tradition and agricultural practices, there is an ongoing effort to strengthen the scientific evidence of the GIAHS approach. In fact, this is a key component of the FAO strategic framework for the next decade, 22 to 31, which seeks to support the 2030 global agenda through the transformation to a more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable agri-food system for better production, better nutrition, better environment, and a better life, this time leaving no one behind. Since the inclusion of GIAHS among the official FAO programs, the organization has implemented a long-term strategy to address the requests of FAO member countries to expand the geographical balance of recognized GIAHS sites while strengthening the scientific background of this innovative approach. For this purpose, the Scientific Advisory Group was created and has been operating since 2016. Since then, the Scientific Advisory Group has sought to improve transparency and clarity of the recognition process, which has doubled the number of GIAHS sites. To date, new countries and the region have become part of the program and at the same time are disseminating information and becoming a strong supporter of the dynamic conservation approach promoted by GIAHS. The strength of GIAHS program stands in its capacity to engage a diverse audience and create an expanding network. In recent years, the visibility of the program has also expanded tremendously and has led to new collaboration, new partnership, new joint activities with UN sister agencies, international organizations, academia and research institutions, as well as, of course, with government and supranational institutions. Today, 22 countries host 67 agricultural heritage systems, while many more are currently under consideration by the Scientific Advisory Group. My wish for this 20th anniversary is to see these numbers grow even more, covering new areas and new types of systems, and to continue highlighting the relevance of GIAHS practices to face current challenges and future global challenges. These unique systems, which embed valuable lessons, are role models of sustainable farming practices and deserve much more recognition and much more support. It is our responsibility to transmit these unique treasures to the future generations. However, we will not be able to do so without the efforts of the smallholder producers, the family farming communities, and indigenous people, youth and women who live in this incredible and beautiful rural areas we saw today through so many pictures that were shared with us. Their knowledge, their practices, their culture, and their relationship with nature are the greatest example of the sustainable future that we are all aspiring for to achieve for every one of us, leaving no one behind. I wish you again a happy GIAHS anniversary, and thank you very much for a stimulating discussion and a great presentation from all over the corners of the world. Thank you very much, and over to you, Kimberly.
Thank you so much. After those words, the only thing that we can say is on behalf of all of GIAHS, all of FAO, thank you so much for joining us. Please, everything is in the chat. Please do contact the site, take a look at the stories. If you're interested from your country perspective, as Mr. Endo said, there is a support email there to let us know. And we'll allow Mr. Endo to make the final statement.
If you have any question, request to support GIAHS, please do not hesitate to write to us through the GIAHS Secretariat email address. And let me just introduce our staff who have been working very hard for this 1.5 or more, or some staff started from May or April. Clelia, already, Hui, and Alina, Christiana, Martina, Federica, I thank you to you all for this contribution. Thank you very much. And this ends my statement. Over to you.
Just wishing everyone a wonderful day, and to take Ms. Luafia up on her thing that we're celebrating 20 years, hopefully by expanding this network further. So we look forward to hearing from your countries as well. Thank you so much for joining us today.